The final hearing of what went wrong with the Secret Service in relation to the assassination attempts on President-elect Donald Trump took place yesterday. Congress grilled Acting Director Ronald Rowe for the mishaps that allowed a shooter to target then-candidate Trump on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, and then catch a gunman on a Florida golf course where Trump was playing. It began like so many other contentious hearings. Let's take a look.
Congressman, I think I was appointed July 23rd, and I was there on the 24th or 25th.
But you were the second most senior member of the Secret Service. You could have gone.
And I was managing from here the crisis. We actually
Okay, so you didn't go. Got it. Did you call the, you were managing the crisis, you just said. Did you call the detail that night on July 13th that was protecting President Trump?
On that night, they were operational, sir.
You did not. Okay. Did you call him the next day?
No, I did not.
Okay. When did you finally talk to him?
I spoke to them when they arrived in Milwaukee.
So 4 days later, July 17th, does that sound about right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you waited 4 days. And when we were talking earlier, a couple months ago, this is an epic failure. We all agree on that. And instead of really focusing on the egregious errors and correcting the incompetence and improving the doctrine and changing the culture, there was a massive appropriations request. We know that you have 8,000 employees. We know that they have a $3.1 billion budget, and you asked for $2 billion additional dollars. What sticks in our craw is when we report to our constituents, we have to say, hey, this federal agency failed epically, and then they wanted to almost double their budget. How much would it have cost to put somebody on that water tower? How much would it have cost to have drones that were actually functioning that day? How much would it have cost to have an ether cable to where your anti-drone technology would have worked?
Well, the hearing then devolved into this when Congressman Pat Fallon of Texas attacked Rowe.
So actually, Congressman, what you're not seeing is the sack of the detail out of the picture's view. And that is the day where we remember the more than 3,000 people that have died on 9/11. I actually responded to Ground Zero. I was there going through the ashes of the World Trade Center. Mm-hmm. I was there at Fresh Kills.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you,
Congressman.
Were you the special agent in charge?
To show respect
you were not.
for a Secret Service member that died on 9/11.
Oh, that you're trying to be.
Do not invoke 9/11 for political purposes.
Oh, I'm not. I'm invoking this.
You are, sir.
Gentlemen,
and you are out of line.
I would like to ask him a question.
Please.
You are out of line,
Congressman. Don't try to bully me. I am an elected member of Congress, and I'm asking you a serious question, and you are playing politics.
I am a public servant who has served this nation, and
you won't answer the question.
On our country's darkest day.
Committee will come to order. Committee will come to order.
I'm asking you serious questions for the American people, and they're very simple. They're not trick questions. Were you the special agent in charge that day?
No, I wasn't. I was there representing the United States Secret Service, sir.
Mr. Fallon, your time's expired.
Did not affect protective operations.
You know why you were there? Because you wanted to be visible, because you are auditioning for this job.
I was there to pay respect for a fallen member of this agency.
You endangered President
out of line, Congressman.
Vice President Harris's life because you put those agents out of position.
Mr. Chairman.
Did you have a radio with you?
Mr. Fallon, your time has expired.
I did, sir, and you are out of line.
Okay, very testy indeed. So what Congressman Fallon was asking about there was a moment where there was a 9/11 memorial service, and Ronald Rowe was there with the Vice President Kamala Harris and the President Joe Biden. And the allegation is that he moved his normal position, which was 3 rows behind the chargees, to right next to them amid this photo op. And his explanation is, well, I served at Ground Zero. I was involved in the cleanup efforts of 9/11, the rescue efforts. So basically, I deserve to be standing next to the president and the vice president. But the question was really about whether or not he moved away Secret Service members who were there to protect the vice president and the president so that he could basically get front and center photo op positioning. And his reaction to that, Susan Crabtree, who's been doing amazing reporting on the Secret Service all summer since the assassination attempt, really angered members of the Secret Service rank and file who said that he was basically trying to deflect from this legitimate line of questioning by making it about 9/11 itself. And they were very disturbed by his reaction to that.
Well, I think his reaction is quite revealing. That is not the kind of tone or tenor that any kind of, whether acting or permanent, director of the Secret Service should have. Clearly, he felt quite sensitive about that subject, and certainly 9/11 is a very sensitive subject for people. But I think it's interesting when you look at the room there in that video. Pretty empty room, by the way. A lot of members of Congress not there, and frankly, a lot of staffers I talked to on the Hill. Some of these hearings get so boring. They're actually happy when things kind of explode a little bit and make things interesting. You notice from the video too that it was a congressman who suddenly kind of exploded out of nowhere, and then certainly the director kind of matched him in that kind of shouting match. I think the root of this issue here is we have to go back to the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. There's a real reason why the Secret Service is being looked into. There needs to be accountability. There's absolutely no reason why that gunman should have had a clear line to the former president of the United States at that rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. I'm sure we've all seen videos where bystanders, civilians who are walking around, who are not law enforcement professionals, but they still spotted this guy going up to the roof and talked to local police, and ultimately they still were not able to do anything about that shooter. It's completely unacceptable. There's been a little bit of accountability at the Secret Service. There needs to be more. There's a rational conversation to be had. I'm not sure it happened in that hearing.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It has to go back to that assassination attempt, and the tone and tenor, as you put it, of Ronald Rowe has left people feeling like the Secret Service is more interested in defending its actions and trying to protect itself than it is in actually seeking accountability and the type of reform needed to prevent something like this from happening again. I mean, when you heard Kimberly Cheadle testify when she was still the director of the Secret Service, she was going on about how they couldn't put officers up on that roof because it was too sloped. But then the roof that they did have snipers on was more sloped than the one that the attempted assassin was on. They didn't cover the water tower. They didn't allow drone surveillance. I mean, all of these things that would probably be pretty obvious to anyone who scoped out this location. It was completely unsecure. I mean, this guy was able to basically just hop a fence and climb up onto a roof and shoot at the president, the former president, and now president-elect. It's absolutely insane. And then again, you have Kimberly Cheadle and now Ronald Rowe testifying in front of Congress. And I think the American people want to see a little bit of humility, right? You have made perhaps the gravest error in your line of work that you can possibly make outside of Donald Trump actually being dead right now. And there was a bystander who was killed, as well as multiple others who were at that rally who were innocent, who were injured. And you don't even have the self-awareness and the respect for the American people and the people who you're charged with protecting to go in there and have a little bit of grace and maybe an apology, really, for your abject failure.
Yeah, we need humility from the Secret Service. Now, granted, they have a very difficult job. They're doing their job when we never hear about them, and you're doing all of this preparation and putting in all these resources for the possibility of a moment like what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. That said, it was completely unacceptable. Now, I do want to go back to this congressman here who just started yelling into his microphone. And I think it's interesting because I remember I've had the opportunity to testify on the Hill before. I remember one particular experience where I was going with a group of interns. I wanted them to kind of see what that experience is like. I remember after the hearing, the intern said, I can't believe that all members of Congress, they're basically cordial. They had a rational conversation across party lines. There were a couple of performative moments, but that's not what you see on social media. So unfortunately, so many of these hearings don't get any attention. The ones that are deserving often get the least attention. But in this case, the congressman, he's calling out the acting Secret Service director for wanting the photo op and wanting to get the attention. But I have a pretty good feeling that the congressman is doing that exact behavior for himself to be seen as tough on the FBI or on the Secret Service director. He's definitely getting a news cycle out of this. We're now talking about it. And so I do think the congressman needs to self-reflect on his conduct in these hearings.
Well, we definitely know that when staff are writing these questions or these lines of inquiry and the Congress people are working with them, that they're often looking for that viral moment.
That's right.
I would say in this case, it was more justified than not, just given the sensitivity of the nature of what they were asking about. But point taken that screaming into your microphone is usually not a good look. All right, we have a lot more topics to cover on Rising. We'll be back right after this.